Morning, Saturday, March 17th, St. Patty's Day. Andy was so kind to do a last moment thing here, and it's on creating and debugging a service in WinDev. So Andy, you want to take it away?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Top of the morning to you. That type of thing. For
Yeah.
you Irish folks out there. Hopefully nobody started drinking the green beer last night, but will today. We had some discussions yesterday and the day before about services, and one of the major reasons I did look at WinDev to start with is because I had written a couple services in C#. It was a pain in the backside. I had written several over years services in Clarion, and this was on a 64-bit machine. I needed a service to MySQL, which nobody covered. Could not cover it. Could not get Clarion to talk to the ODBC driver on the server to talk to MySQL. So I was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So let's talk a few moments here about the differences between the Clarion methodology of a service and the WinDev. Clarion basically uses self-service, which is a Capesoft product, a wonderful product that has definitely got around the issue of Clarion really not doing services. In essence, it allows it to run as a service, but you need to have a window that's not shown basically and use the timer event in the window to do your service loop. You cannot get events to the event viewer in versions up to this version 6.3. I have no idea about anything past 6.3. And the only way to really debug the process is to run it manually and use things like debug message or the Clarion debugger, which pretty much most of us have abandoned years ago, unless we absolutely had to use it. WinDev, on the other hand, is a true service. It allows you to stuff things to the event viewer, and I'm going to show you an event view right now. And yes, there's a bunch of errors on here, but that's on purpose. So you can see that whatever I put into the error log to post to the service event, it will put in there. So you can see I've got the full error. I can look at this, and if I'm not getting connection to the database or not getting connection to where I can look at our own internal logging, I can certainly go up to the event viewer and figure out what's going on. Now, the problem with WinDev is you don't have a window, so you can't run it interactively. Okay? That means that your debugging is a total different issue. You got to look at it differently, and what I'm gonna go through today is how to look at that and still be able to debug your system and what you built, yet have the service do exactly what it's supposed to do, which is what? The service does really nothing more than the Windows event processing, the loop through and be able to run the service or run the items you want it to run, and finally close out when it's finished or restart at another time frame, wait and restart again. Basically the window functionality on the timer. Everything else is done within processes of within the system. Okay. Now, to start off a brand new one, and this is the deal, to start off a brand new one, I have, and this goes back to that repository that we talked about in a previous WinDev Live. Underneath my SCM, if I open the at SCM, you remember I had set myself up a repository set of items. These are the things that I use all the time. Okay, these are the things I want to pick and pull from anytime I need it. Things that I want to utilize over and over and over again. The classes are still here, and I've got a few other things in here you haven't seen yet, and I'm fixing to show them to you. When you want to do a new service, I want to create a new one that I've been looking to create now anyway. So we'll go through the new process, a new project, And this one here is, I'm going to call this one, this is going to be my DX host services. I'm going to put it in the directory I want it to be in. See here.
You want to fix your big E there before you hit it?
No, I don't. I like it like that.
Okay.
Don't be messing with my project, dude.
That's the best I can do for you is spelling and stuff. Okay.
Oh, I already got it existing. Hang on here a second. I must have created it already. Let's make it 2. I'll make it a second one, then I got the other one going, so we'll go from there. Okay. This one here, we're going to call it a Windows service. Okay. Don't choose any of these. We got to call it a Windows service because that makes a difference in what you can work with inside the app generator. Okay. So we go in here. Windows platform is what I want. And I'm going to say, okie dokie smoky. Do I work on the team? No, not at this time. Do I use an SCM? Yes, I want to use my SCM. Do I use the standing charter? I actually created one, and I wanted, one of these days we're going to go through the charter, but I did create one for the charter. English, because we don't do anything. And I'm not going to use a database. Okay? Not going to use the database. And the description, we're all said and done. Rock and roll. Merry Christmas. Up she comes. And now she wants to hook it into the SCM. And I'm going to put it down into setup. Okay.
32-bit, right?
Yes, it's 32-bit. Yeah. Most of our stuff is still running 32-bit because most of the servers that we're dealing with is still 32. You can do either one, but you know, we go from there. Of course, now we got a blank. We got nothing in here, and this is where life gets started. Okay. Underneath the project code is where things kind of get going. We've got initialization, and we got running the service in a loop. This is the same as the Clarion window timer event. And there's 2 pieces of code that I have in there. And what I did was I took their example. I'm not kidding. I just took their example, and I made 2 code blocks to handle that. You can see I've got one over here called code loop, and I've got another one that is project code. Okay, project code is the one I'm going to use up here. I'm going to put that there. Check it out and rock and roll. Now what this does is gives me some global variables and things that I use all the time. I use some characters I use all the time, run dates, my service name, which is going to be now DX or Tire Power Hosting Services. Okay. You'll see that those are errors. That's fine. We'll take care of those in just a moment. And we're kind of done with that section because I copied over and put in what I wanted as my information that I use constantly in that code block. I just dump it over there. I'm done with it. I'm you know, just change the service name and I'm ready to go. Now I've got the loop section, which I got to put in as well. And now I've got that here in a code loop as well. I dropped that down in there as well. And here it has the timer of my current runtime, my last runtime, the service execution. I got a service wait to change whatever wait amount that I want on there. And then I have the service write event log. The service write event log is what writes into this event viewer. That's what writes into it. Okay. So I'm writing in there that we've done this. We're ready to go. And this is the exception on the service we're going to fail. And that's pretty much the end of the project code. You can see that service execution is where really everything's done. So the next thing I've got to do is down here in my project area, in my code module area, I need some procedures down here. So here's where I go back to my SCM. I'm going to import an element from the SCM. And from my repository that I had previously done, I'm going to pick up 2 things. I'm going to pick up the program, and I'm going to pick up the P service. That's the 2 I'm going to pick up. Now, you can name them what you want, but if you go over to their example, you'll notice that there is a program and a service global group code. Basically, those are the two you need. Modify them like you want, save them, copy them over to your repository and save them. And I'm going to import a copy because I may change them, so I don't want to share that across. Otherwise, I'll be changing other ones. When those gets done, now what I have here is I have a program that has the in-service execution, the on-command line, and the service execution. I have the program, which is the check Windows version, the install service, and uninstall service. This is every one of the procedures that you can see in the example program that I need here. Do I need to change any of them? No, because they work fine. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. The only one I'm going to modify is this one here. This is the only one I modify, because this one here is what tells me what I'm going to run.
Hey, Andy?
Yeah.
So did those things you pulled from SCM, did you do a copy, I'm sorry, or did you just...
No, I imported a copy because I'm going to modify this procedure, so I don't want to share it. Okay? So when I create a new service, I'm copying from there. One other thing I got to copy from there, you notice I got a big fat when install error. Okay? What do we need to do? Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to the SCM and I'm going to import that window. Okay? So I import the element from the SCM. The window doesn't change. I mean, there's nothing rocket science about it. Okay? So I go back to my repository. Oh, it's here somewhere. There it is. And I'm going to get the window. See, I've got the window up here, and I'm going to import a copy of that. Okay. Okay. Now, the window, okay, if I go back here, I've got the window right here. I can put whatever I want here as my text. Okay. Page down. I think there's a page up, page down. Yeah, the different ones. See, service not installed. All of those functionalities are still in this window without a problem. And in essence, at this time, I can compile this and I can run this program. It won't do nothing, but it is a service and it will run. Okay? Now, the question is, you say, okay, well, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add all of these items, the other procedures and stuff that I want to call to it and things like this inside here. I say don't do that. Okay? And I'll explain to you why. When you actually run something like that, and I'm going to open up another one over here on this other side. What you're doing is you're taking away your ability to debug your program. When you run or when you have a service and you hit the F9, there's nothing for it to do. It has a hard time trying to figure out because you're trying to run it as a service, and a service does not allow you to do those kind of things. So how do you solve that problem? Well, what I do is this is as far as it goes for what I want to do here. I've got my hosting. Then I go making a component. Okay? Now, for everybody that's made components, you should be able to make components by now. And if we don't, we'll have another webinar on how to make a component. Okay? But right now, let's say that we already know how to say component and go through this stuff. There are two things that I do. As you can see, there are two major sets of procedures down here. I've got EPI private procedures, which is every one of the procedures that we use to manage the what we call EP processing, and public procedures. Public procedures is the only one that's exposed. You can see it's an init. If I go into here, I am sending three parameters. I'm sending the thread name that I want, the thread flag I want, and the thread mode I want. Okay? Now, why am I doing it as a thread? Because literally what I'm going to be doing is actually running multiple threads in the background from that service on purpose. So I could actually have one service managing 6 or 7 different items if I want to. Threading, we tried to do threading in Clarion through the service, and either it did not work or I couldn't figure it out very well. In essence, I couldn't get it to work without it freezing up the machine. But threading inside of WinDev through a service actually works very, very nicely. I'm using it now in multiple places, and I like the idea because if you've got a lot of processing to do in the background, it runs great. It really does. So I'm passing these 3 flags to it. I'm doing my private procedures, has my connect local. That way I can connect to the database. And the reason why this is all done is I don't use the same context between the component and the service, because the service, as far as it's concerned, it does not know a thing about the database. It does not care about the database. It doesn't care how to hook to it. That's what the component does. The component does the work. The service does nothing but manage the components. That's all it does. So we come through here. We're going to go through that. We've got opening up the master. We want to see if we got any thread information through this. We go through it, and then we run whatever thread we want, or we process the DB list, and we go on. Rock and roll, life is good, forward and on. And we've got all of our little procedures here to run. Okay? Now, to debug, here's the deal. I'm going to... what I'm going to do here is that I've got my process, I've got my procedure already built in WinDev here, and basically this code has already been debugged. Like I said, I could run it now, it would do nothing, it would run and then wait basically 60 seconds and then run again, 60 seconds, run again. There's nothing more you need to do with that. But we do want to know how the program itself is going to work. In other words, when I put this component and plug it in, I want to know that it's going to do its job. Okay? So let's go through and let's debug. I still do the F9 right here, and I can say, okay, these are the 3 fields I have: a thread name, a thread flag, and mode. I'm going to say the thread name is going to be EPI thread. Thread flag is going to be none, because I don't need one, and the thread mode is going to be thread flag. I'm sorry, thread flag is going to be false, because I don't want to run a thread right now, and the thread mode is going to be none. Okay, and I want to run the procedure. Now, it obviously just ran right through it because I forgot to put a break on there, but I'm going to put a break back in there. I pull a boner. So I'm going to put a B here so I can break it and run it again. Okay, now we're stopped right here. We're ready to go. I don't need to run this. I'm actually going to run right down here, and I'm going to run over the step over the function. I'm going to run until the cursor, until I'm right there on process DB list, and then I'm going to step through it. Now what this is going to do is step through each of my statements. It's going to say, okay, what am I doing? It's running through and it's opening up and catching my connections. I'm basically running through the entire thing, and I'm looking at the different areas to see what information I got back. If I got an error, whatever happens. And I can run through this process until I've got everything done, until I know that the process is working right. Now, obviously, I'm also doing things, particularly on in SQL as well. So I've got SQL up on another machine that I'm watching the data as it goes through and seeing that it's working right, things like this. But this allows me to step through my code and make sure that I have no real syntactical errors in the code. What it does. Makes it fairly nice. Now, if I run through this clean, I don't have any problems. Then I know my component, and then of course I got to check my data. And then I got to run through my, like I said, run through my components until I know I got a clean compile, and then I'm done. Now, to make the whole thing run correctly, okay, and be done with this process, I'm going to go to the project. I'm going to go ahead, our workshop rather. I'm going to go external component. I'm going to generate the component. In here, when I generate it, I've got my component name. I've got all the procedures that I'm going to include. I've got the one public procedure checked off. This is accessible outside the component. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Come down. Set my little icon. I'm going to finish it off. Regen this just in case I changed anything, which I didn't. Okay. Don't create a help file. And I'm going to publish it to the SCM underneath this directory. There's a reason why I'm publishing it. And the reason why is that if you publish it to the SCM, then when you're opening up another one that is using this particular component, then he'll say, hey, you got a new version of this. Do you want to, bring it down? And that's what I want. And then I'm going to compile it, be done. Merry Christmas, we're all finished. Okay, the component's been done. It is compiled. It has been debugged. Everything is completed on it. So the only thing left now is to get the thing running in the service itself. And all I need to do then is I need to come back over to my service execution. I need to, first of all, I need to go into my component area. Go to my components, go to custom components. I'm going to find my CMP EPI process, which is what I'm looking for. I got to go back here. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Go here. So I go here, drop it on. That's the wrong one, actually. Let's go. Yeah. I got the wrong one. There we go. This is the one I want. Put that up there. There's my procedure init. What I want to send to it, thread name, flag, mode. Put that right there. Then I can go back to my procedure name, service execution, type in that I want to EPI, call the init, and the thread name is going to be EPI thread. Thread flag is true, and the thread mode is thread normal. That way it's a normal running thread. Okay. Compile and run the project. I'm going to go into services, generate the service. Open up the generation directory because it will not run it directly. And guess what? I've got the host, the deal, and every one of my things to it. And if I double click on this, there's my window to install. When I click the install, it's off and running, doing its job. Okay. Properly installed and running. Let's look here.
Sure looks like 10 times faster.
Okay. It's been a number of years since I wrote a service. Okay, here's all of the, that's EPI, I'm not running that one. Here's all of the deals still running in there. And if I want to shut that service off, I double click it again and uninstall. Okay. And it's trying to stop the service right now, but just uninstall, and that's all I have to do. Save it, rock and roll, we're done. The biggest key that I can tell people for ease of development, okay, it's not that you can't go to the, the help or go to, the example service and just add in, save it as a different project and start adding in procedures. is a matter of efficiency. And efficiency, it is much easier to me to build components and plug them into an existing service than it is to to do anything else. We have different services for moving XML, moving orders, moving pricing up to the web, moving inventory back and forth between partners. We got like 6 or 7 little processes that we run all the time, and those processes all have to be on every one of these machines, and we have 500 installations. So what we do is that we have the ability inside the database to turn on or off a service, a portion of it if they don't use it. And this way we can actually debug the entire thing, process it, make sure everything's working right, and then just basically plug it into the service, and you're off and running. We don't have to debug the exe. We don't have to debug anything else that's out there, and it makes it so much easier to deal with than any other way. And from my standpoint, just kind of showing you the number of services we deal with. I've got the ePower partners, price calc. This is a new one. That's that ActiveEnt one we did this seminar on. We're going to have I'm going to have pricing in there. That's the price calc. We got that one. And there's going to be another one called DX, which is data movement. So there's all kinds of things that we're doing within this item, and like I said, it is so much easier. There's the EPI one there that we've been working on. It's so much easier to work with. It's set up under a repository where you're keeping all of the stuff that you don't have to change. So you can keep the global procedures there, the other items there, and you have 2 code loops or 2 code bricks that you have to put in there, and that's it. Rock and roll. Pretty much done. Okay.
Damn.
Any questions?
Well, let me see if I can turn on the mic for people.
Any questions at all?
Let me turn Ben on too.
I think the repository is probably one of the best.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a fantastic tool to use, and it is something, and that's a deal that I had way back in Oracle days. When they used to do Oracle Forms, they used to have a repository that everything was in Oracle Forms, and you could pull things from everywhere. And it has been missing in my life ever since I left Oracle Forms years and years and years, and before dirt years ago. But I've always looked for a methodology to put the repository type stuff back in whatever I was working with, and this is the first product I've been able to do that and do what I wanted to do with it. So again, any questions out there?
Well, I think your concept is just perfect. I mean, you break everything out, you test everything in its smallest component, and then you use it.
Yeah.
Plug her in, right?
Yeah, and just plug and play from there. Get as small as you can. Make the components, or building small libraries or components is the best thing to do, and then you can just plug and play whatever you need to do. There are groups of these program groups that we have here that I'm going to be putting up there to share, that has small items for like our people sections, like all of the services, all of the procedures we call for people, for those of you use Hyperfile or something else that is non-SQL based, where your rule set is like you want to use closer to a 3rd tier type thing. You can make them into classes, or you can make them into the project or the procedure groups, and share them out of that repository. Okay, bricks are local to the developer. That is correct. It is, but you can share your bricks. The directory for them is, you need to go to, if I'm trying to remember exactly where it is, I think it's, I haven't been there in a while, but it is a directory local to you Where we got? Do I remember offhand? Thought. Anybody remembers offhand where the directory is? It's under the parameters? Okay, that's right. So product description, is it underneath here? Or do I have to be out of the project? I think I might have to be out of the project. Anyway, we'll post up a picture about that. But there's a directory that it's in, and what we've done there at the office is we put it in our Dropbox. So we've repointed the bricks to our Dropbox. And what happens is if I change a brick or update a brick, or any one of them do, the next time I'm in and out, it picks up the new version of it out of the Dropbox. So it makes it pretty easy to save that way, because whoever you want to share your Dropbox directory with in the world, you can.
So is there a way to like use SEM to manage your bricks, code bricks? So
I have not found one yet. Now,
that's
not saying that
share everything out of there, kind of.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the only way that I see is you have to have a wrapper around it, like a project or a code group or something like this. So it's not as easy. These are, these right here are just straight files. They're FIC files.
Right.
So, I mean, you can copy them anywhere you want. Okay.
Well, the only reason I was saying that is because, if we start building a library of standard code bricks that you can just drop on and grow from.
Sure. What you would do with that is I would.
There we go.
Yeah. Tools, options.
General.
I'm looking for options first. I'm blind this morning. There it is.
On the bottom.
There you go. It's general options. Yeah. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Then you got, you can go down to your bricks code, which is underneath code bricks here. And you can just change that and put it wherever you want.
So you pointed that to your Dropbox, huh?
Yeah. So if be honest with you, if everybody has Dropbox out there, we could. The only problem with it is that you might want to copy it. If you try to do it for everybody in the world, you're going to end up, somebody overwriting something else, like where they don't want to. But I can certainly, I don't have a problem in creating. I got a 50 gig Dropbox. I'm certainly not opposed to creating a shared Dropbox for the group and putting my code bricks out there, and then you can copy them and use them, or pull out what you want, leave the rest alone, whatever you want to do. If anybody has any great ones to add to it, do it. When I do code bricks, you'll see that I'm kind of, I got service dash, I got SQL dash, I got static dash. The reason behind that is to make sure that those items that deals with services stay together, SQL stays together, static things stay together, so that way I can find them easier in the list in case it gets over the, as everything does. It's I consider it more like fungus. It just kind of grows, and so you end up with 150, 200 code bricks. You want to be able to find them fairly easily. And so I've decided to put the what it's geared towards first, and then a dash and what it's supposed to be doing. This was my original setup. You can see I've got each one of the procedures in there when I was starting to do them first, before I said, hey, what about a repository? You can see where I put each one of the procedures in here in order to create them the same way from that.
So some things graduate. So some things graduate out of code bricks then.
Yeah, because see, like right now, I don't, the install service, there's nothing to it. It's just, it's just code, and it's the same code. It's the procedure, and it's the same code that's in the example program. Okay? So there's no sense in constantly having that when I could copy the entire set of procedures. Okay? There's the install service. I can copy the entire set of procedures and do what I want to do. Okay?
So code bricks is where you put modifiable chunks of code versus this library of routines or procedures or whatever you want to call them.
That's correct.
that's really not changeable because it's tested, time tested, and it works good.
Yeah,
And you're
because
not
this right
worried.
here, if you do the SQL stuff, it's stuff I'm going to change when I bring it in all the time. I'm going to put my SQL statement in there. I'm going to put my connection, you know, my parameters,
But then
whatever I
again,
want.
you could actually make it a procedure if you passed in the things and not and
Yes,
get rid of that.
to a point, because you would actually have to, for what I do in the SQL stuff, you would actually have to pass in the data source or have the data source already made up, because you got to be able to know what you're pulling out of the data source when you do your return information.
Mm-hmm.
I could pass in, like on this right here, I could pass in the SQL statement, which I do. This right here is a constant, so it really doesn't change that much. This is the same thing as a passed in parameter. The only thing about it is this right here is getting the result set out of that DSSQL. This is only active for that procedure, so you would have to move the result set to something else. That's
Oh, your
the only
do
difference.
stuff there is where you customize it.
Right, right,
Okay.
right. So, you know, things like this, the loop is set up to be, you know, data source statement, and then for each data source, which
Do your thing.
I give credit to Mr. Glenn Rathke for that little code right there. That for
Woohoo,
each data
man.
source. Yeah, that was just too cool. So I give him credit for that one. We do that. The service right event log is just straight right to the event log. I mean, this is probably about the simplest thing you can do on the EXE, and basically all it is setting up the framework. It'd be like setting up an app to do nothing but the services, and then you go, you know, save the app as a different name and put in your rest of your information. It's the same thing in essence, and it makes it a whole lot easier to work with.
Cool.
So here in about
Anybody?
what? We did it in 30 minutes, just
Yep.
a little bit more. 39.
Well,
We actually did it in 30. Made a whole
you
service
did
in
it in
30
30.
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Damn good.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we shut this one off?
Yeah, I'm done. Unless somebody got a
Anybody
great
have any
question or two.
feedback or comments? As needed.
Ben's clapping. I think that's what it's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
You're welcome,
Clap, clap,
Chris.
clap, clap. What's
You're
Chris
welcome,
saying?
Chris. Chris is as neat as creating an actual service is. I'm really psyched about how you started debugging in the source. Been used to clearing that. It's pretty amazing. Thanks. You want me to go through it again, Chris? I don't
Damn
mind. I'll go
straight.
through it again. I know it's something that we haven't done very much of. It, you know, if that's something you haven't done yet, we can certainly show. No, I don't mind at all. So he wants to go through the debugger a little bit. We'll go through that portion of it again, and we'll kind of do it in depth a little bit more than normal as a process. Okay.
So we're doing
Let's
a
see here.
debug session right now.
Yeah, let's do a debug session.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. Whole nother webinar. Okay. Here's we'll do a short one on this, Chris, and then what we'll end up doing is we will go ahead and then do a full webinar on another day on debugger and everything you can do with it, because there's a lot of different things you can do with the debugger for sure.
Okay, if you want to do that, then because we really should make that whole nother recording.
What would you like? Talk to me.
Okay.
I do know that if you need a lot of help in getting started, and you can contact Glenn Rathke. He puts on a heck of a class for WinDev and WebDev.
That's training, not
training
a
class.
programming class.
No, it's not a programming class. It's a training class on different things that Glenn Rathke does. Just give him a holler on the news group. He's out of St. Louis, so if you're close enough, we can get into that. Okay. All right, so here we'll go through the debugger a little bit, and we'll just show a few things with it. You can debug any procedure within a area. Okay, you don't have to go to the top. You don't have to go to the window. If I want to debug just this portion, all I have to do is hit an F9 on that portion, and what it'll do is it says parameters of process DB list. You'll see there is no parameters, so I don't have to do anything. Here's the cool part about this is it's interactive. It's ready to run whenever I am, but I'm going to stop it here, and then I'm also going to stop I'm going to stop it here, okay, and I'm going to mark this area here, okay, and let's see what happens. When I run this, it stops right there, and I want to know what this statement is. Of course, when I run my mouse across, I get that right there, which is fine, but that's just not exactly what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and add this expression of the debugger. Now I've got the debugger down here. It's a full-blown debugger. I've got the select statement down here where I need it, and I say, okay, so far so good. I'm going to step into it, which is an F7 button. I'm going to go to the next line, which says, uh-oh, I'm unable to process. Okay, so I've got an error now. Now, I did this on purpose. I know there's an error. And what is the error? Well, the error is I'm not having any connections. I'm not connected to anything. So I said, okay, well, I can't run this one by itself. I got to go earlier in the process to be able to do it. So I have to go back to my init, and that's the reason why I did this. So you can see that, hey, I got an error. I can go see what the error is. And let's go back through this again. Now I want to go through my B here, and I'm going to hit my F9 again. Now it's saved, if you can see, it saved the last set that I put there because I'm still in the procedure, so I can just run it again. I got down here, and then I got down here. You notice it says test already in progress. Do you want to stop the current test and run a new one? Oh, yeah, I do, because I messed up. I was still on the other one because I hit the run procedure again. So if I go into here and then say, okay, let's go. Now I'm back to this procedure. I'm ready to go, but I wanted to go through here instead. Dadgummit. So I can now change this to be true. Say, I'll run it again. And what it's going to do is say, want to run it again? Sure. I'm going to start from the top again. That's one of the really cool pieces. Oh, no, I really don't. I want to go false. I want to run it again. Okay. And then I go down, and I'm going through my process up. I'm going to go all the way down here, and I'm going to run it until the cursor. Down here, now I can check the values of each one of these variables by highlighting it. I've got every one with it. If I want to know what that is, I can put it in the expression in the debugger. I can go through whatever the different things that I wish to go through and know exactly where each one of these pieces are that I want it to be before I go to the next section. Now we're going to see if we got a connection. It's going to check the thread state. Oh, we're going to process the DB list, which is exactly what I want. Now I'm in the DB list again, and I can hit the go variable because I'm going to go down until I get to the query. And I want to go on down until I hit throttle settings, which are 1. I really want to go to the process ESIT, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run it until cursor. I'm back to ESIT. I'm going to go in here. And this process loops through and does all kinds of things. Okay? So we can go through that. And I'm just stepping through it one step at a time.
You know, I think what Clarion guys will realize is when you have that, what most people would call where you have the expression, they call it the watch list.
Yeah.
The watch list is where a lot of people think they have to do the debug view, right?
Yeah, that's what basically is the same thing, but you don't have to.
So you don't have to go do your tracing and all that. You just say, what is it as I step through, right?
As I step through it. A lot of times, 90% of the time, I'm sorry, I don't really use too much of the expressions unless I'm going through 2 or 3 levels deep. Most of the time, if I'm up here and I want to, I want to see what variable is that I'm running, I just use my mouse to go over it and see what the statement says. Now, in this instance here, as you can see that I've got the select asterisk from decom statement there. If I want to keep that to kind of see what's going on, then I'll go ahead and put it into the expression on the debugger. And then, of course, you can right mouse click, you can copy the value, put it in your SQL statement, SQL itself, and run it. So what should I get back from this? I can run SQL and see exactly what I'm supposed to be back from there. Okay. And you can watch that in case it changes. But, for the most part, most of my items is dealing with, being able to do things and did I get the information I want? This right here actually goes and sets the connection on the fly. Okay. It actually gets the connection information for that information from the database. We got the server, database name, user, and password. We're getting that from the database and storing it in the DBCon, and then going out there and say, okay, we're good, we're happy. We're going to go ahead and see if we can connect to it. There's the open connection, and if we've got a good connection, we're off and running to the remote database. Okay.
Sweet.
Now, what we'll do is we'll try to set up a set of debuggers to go through a window, a set of procedures, as well as a class. So that way you can see how it goes through each one of those sections. But it is pretty nice. And the bottom line deal is that if you're using the debugger properly, there's a lot of questions that you'll answer yourself. You'll be able to see, why is it doing that? And you're saying, well, every time I run this screen, I get everything in the database except for this one field. Now, the first thing out of your mind is, why am I not getting that field entered, or why is that field not entered? And frankly, you'll find out the reason is you didn't link it to the the schema. But you'll be able to say, hey, that's just not getting a value. Why is it not getting a value? Okay, and you can go through those processes.
So
I do love
processes
this.
and a lot, huh?
I'm sorry.
Do you debug reports and processes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I love about this is if you have a standalone process, or like this, a component, the ability to debug the actual procedure without having a window to have to go through first, or something like that, is absolutely awesome to me. It is excellent. It is absolutely excellent.
Yeah, it's really cool.
You can certainly do a hell of a lot with it. That's for sure.
Makes it tingle.
That's right.
All right. So I'll add that to the title of this webinar 15A.
Short debugger.
Yep, short debugger. More to come. As always, Andy, you are the best.
I just want 9-toed Andy, that's all. Or nine nails.
If there's
Andy.
no
I
other
forgot
questions, we'll close this off, and I'll go put it up for those people that slept in.
Yeah, the bums, sleepy heads.
Okay, I better turn the recorder off now. Thanks again.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Y'all have a good time. I'll be on